Hello. Whew. Hopefully I'm not too out of breath. I was running up and down the stairs because, of course, I kept forgetting things upstairs. But welcome. So glad to have you here. And those of you who are on replay crew, you're always welcome. And no matter where you're coming from, if you could take just a minute to like the video, sharing it in feeds, Twitter, those sorts of places helps a lot too. But trying to gain some traction here and fitting my new mouse. Finally got a magic mouse for my laptop because I had a aftermarket one. And it was driving me crazy because it would like fall asleep and disconnect constantly. And so every time, I don't like the angle of my mic here. Let's see if I can fix it. There, can you hear me better? Every time like I haven't been using it for a while and I want to go use it, I would have to like click to wake it up, and it just was getting tired of it. Whoa! I finally got myself a new mouse for down here. So give me 1 second so I can connect that, and I will be a much happier camper. Someday I'm gonna get myself a new desktop, but for now I'm working from my laptop, and then I use my iPad as a second screen for right now because I have to be able to work on the go because kids. So I do a lot of my work kind of from wherever I am, sitting in the climbing gym, skate park, swim deck, wherever we are, I have to be able to do some work. So, and my desktop is like, well, it's as old as my middle child, so 12 years old, and it's a mess. Where is that? Oh, you guys. Sorry, I'm not as prepared. This summer thing is killing me. So, how is everybody doing? Lady in the Black. This right here, chronic pain. I'm with you. So that always is a factor in sleep too, right? But then you add in anxiety and ADHD in that loop, and it's an issue. And so I have some research articles I'm going to pull. I have way more than we can go over tonight. I can't stream for longer than about an hour and a half tonight, just because I am insanely behind on work stuff because we had a stomach bug go through our house, so everything fell to pieces and I have to catch up. And I'm going to be driving 2.5 hours tomorrow up to another city for my son has a string ensemble cello performance. I'm not going to be able to hook this up right now because it needs to be charged. So, not going to have the magic mouse for tonight, but next time. So we'll go back to stupid aftermarket wannabe. 20 hours of sunlight. Where are you, Arctic Ginger? Because that's brutal. And then in the winter, I would never be able to do anything. So my ring light that I use here, because I'm scrapping things together, is actually it's a UV therapy lamp that I got for Christmas because I struggle in those winter months, and we're in Utah, so we're not we have long, and it was an exceptionally long winter, and it gets dark because we live in a valley between mountains, so we get an inversion which traps a lot of pollution in the valleys at certain times in the winter. And so even like though it's daylight hours, we don't get a lot of sun. North of 60th parallel. Yeah, that's brutal. Yeah, I have this light. It's on like a yellow setting because I can't do white either. But I would set it on my desk or next to my room and just try and get my brain to work that and use that light. But a lot of the problems with ADHD, as we'll talk about, have to do with melatonin production, and that our brains don't produce it in the right amounts and at the right times, which causes a lot of sleep disturbance for people with ADHD. I don't think I could do that far north. There was one summer where my husband was doing a little side intern type work with his father, who's also a child psychologist. And so we went and lived with them for about 6 weeks in the summer. He was still in graduate school and I was a teacher, so we had kind of that summer break. So we went and stayed with them up in Washington, just outside of Olympia. And I really struggled with the fact that the sun did not set until 10:30 at night, and then it was back up at 4, and it messed with me. So, Northern Lights. That's definitely on my bucket list. Apparently last month there was one night where we could see the Northern Lights here in Utah, and I missed it because I don't watch news. So I missed it, but you could see it from our house, which never happens in Utah. It doesn't come that south, but I couldn't do that summer and then when we go there for Christmas, sometimes the sun goes down at 4 and doesn't come up until 10. I don't know how people get anything done, because I don't function well without the light. Yes, give a mouse a cookie is the best description of ADHD trying to get something done. It's I saw that thing. Now I need to go do that. And then you get to the end of the day and you've been working and working and working all day long, but you have not done anything. At least in that one, he gets back and actually gets a cookie at the beginning. He accomplishes his goal. You're not that late. And I've just been rambling. And I'm going to try not to chew in your ears here. I have some food here because I haven't eaten dinner. I also have both of my Stanley mugs. This one's got liquid IV in it today, and this one is almost out of Dirty Diet Dr. Pepper. Actually, Dr. Pepper Zero this time. And I may have to take a few comfort breaks in between as a result, because I'm supposed to push a gallon of fluids today to do a collection for, I had some kidney stones in the fall, and they are trying to determine what, if any, changes I need to make to my diet to prevent them from happening again. So if I need to pause for a comfort break, it's because I have been drinking nonstop. All right, so I'm going to run the intro real quick and shove a couple of cheesy crackers in my mouth. And let's see, I moved it over here. So let's see, did it work? I'm figuring this thing out by hook or by crook. Video clips. Intro. Hi, I'm Nicole, and as you have probably guessed, I have ADHD. I live and breathe all things ADHD in my personal, family, and professional life. I have a background in psychology and special education, and I've gained a lot of knowledge over the years about ADHD, what it really is, how it touches every aspect of your life and the life of your child, as well as a wealth of information and strategies for living with ADHD and parenting kids with ADHD. In this community, we share stories, we learn together, and we support each other as we navigate all things ADHD. Welcome. Forgot to unmute. All right, that worked. Good. I'm figuring things out little by little. Here we go. So, thank you. I spent a very, very, very long time hyper-focusing on it, trying to get it absolutely perfect before I launched anything. So I'm glad you all like it. I also, if I can find it, where is it? I have a swoop. I need to find it. And I think I stuck it in a folder, so I might have to re-download it. So, swoop to come later. Because I can't keep myself organized. So I'm going to download that right now so that it's ready when we want to use it. But let's find some articles about sleep and ADHD that we might want to go through. This is a good one, but it is a little older than I would like. So let me see. Nope, that's not the one I want. Sorry, I pulled up like 12 different articles because I wasn't sure which one was going to strike my fancy. Anybody know what that's like? All right, we're going to pull this one up. Even though it's a little bit older, it is from 2014, but it's from one of my favorite researchers. His name is Russell Barkley, and he is fantastic. So Russell Barkley is one of the leading researchers on ADHD. He runs a treatment facility and research program. He's getting up there in age, and he, unfortunately, I think is stepping back a few things, although he's still coming out with good books. My very favorite book on parenting is, where did I put it? Is by him. This isn't it. This is a treatment one. It's called 12 Principles for Raising Your Child with ADHD. My office is still a mess from, we got a new air conditioning unit last week because ours had died, and the utility closet is in my office. So we had to like move everything around so they could get the unit in, and I haven't had a chance to clean my office back up. But this book, it's a little dense, it's a little clinical, but if you really want to understand your own ADHD, this says for parents, but it's not just for parents. And he has one that is for labeled for adult ADHD. I think it's upstairs. So I will not pause and go get it. But Russell Barkley's research is fantastic. He understands ADHD and is able to describe it in a way. He's had a few little clips and videos go viral on TikTok and YouTube and things. Although it doesn't say his name, but if you've seen there's one going around about shepherding ADHD as a parent, being a shepherd. That's one I've seen going around quite a bit lately in social media. But anything by Russell Barkley, if you're looking for books, is excellent. So he, for a very long time, put out this journal called the ADHD Report. And that's where this article is from. So it's a little dense because it's meant for clinicians. But you guys have all been going through legal briefs, so we can handle a little dense, right? So let me remember how to share my screen. Nope, that's not what I wanted to do. Oh, I need to do one thing first before that will work. And to make sure that I'm not showing any personal private information. from my job. So I gotta close a couple windows real quick. Sorry, again, not as prepared as I would like to be, but here we are. Come on, you can do it. There we go. All right. This is the one I want. And there we go. Can we all see? So first of all, I guess put in the chat your questions about ADHD and sleep. Sorry, I'm a mess. Any concerns you have? Are we talking about kids? Are we talking about you as an adult? And anything you in particular that you want me to go over, but I think we'll start just by going through this article. That's kind of a total overview. This one was printed in 2014, so it's not the most current as far as research goes, but it does give a pretty good overview in general. And Russell Barkley is just a great source, so I'm going to opt for his stuff over some other articles, even if they are put out a little more recently, because I trust his research. So he's talking this Cuij and Belenja's piece on delayed circadian sleep cycles in adults with ADHD and its consideration of associated sleeping and circadian rhythm difficulties. It says here, I wish to give background on the status of evidence concerning the larger domain of sleeping problems in ADHD. So one of the largest identifiable sleep disorders in people with ADHD and adults with ADHD right now is who a lot of the research is on. They're saying up to 75% of adults with ADHD have what is called delayed sleep phase syndrome. And in order to be identified as delayed sleep phase syndrome, it means that your body produces melatonin. I believe it's 2 hours is the cutoff. 2 hours later than someone who's neurotypical. So what does that mean? Well, normally the way bodies produce melatonin is when the sun goes down, when it gets dark, your body will naturally start producing melatonin, so that within about 2 hours of when the sun sets, your body's ready to fall asleep. So if you think about that on an average scale, right, the sun is going down around 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the summers here, 6 o'clock early, depending on where you live. 2 hours later is when you should start feeling sleepy. If, farm life, right? For someone with delayed sleep phase syndrome, that means that it's not for another 2 hours. So the sun goes down at 8, normal people, melatonin production at 10. For us, we're now pushing at least 12. And it's 2 hours or more. So just that delayed sleep phase cycle, right, is one major factor in sleep with people with ADHD. Our brains aren't producing that chemical that makes us sleep at the right time, which then means we're struggling to get to sleep. We're not able to wake up in the morning because, again, melatonin goes up and down, wake up kind of when the sun wakes up sort of thing, right? Our bodies don't do that. They're going to then want that 8 hours of sleep from when you start, right? So say your delayed melatonin production is 2 hours late, so you're at 12. Now 12 to 8 is your sleep time as opposed to 10 to 6. So if you have to get up at 6, now you are 6 hours. I'm going to turn off my watch notifications because it's distracting me every time it buzzes. That's not helpful. So now, right now we're operating on 6 hours of sleep instead of 8. And that's every night over time. Now we're chronically sleep deprived. And sleep deprivation, especially chronic sleep deprivation, is one of the most common exacerbators of ADHD symptoms. So if you don't get enough sleep, your ADHD symptoms are worse, harder to manage, right? And then it builds on itself, because the other problem with ADHD and sleep is our little brains, as soon as you hit the pillow, are pinging in 12 different directions. And getting your stinking brain to shut up is a problem. I have one of my kids who he will sleep better if he takes a Ritalin an hour before he goes to bed than if his meds have already worn off. Because if his meds have worn off completely, he cannot turn his brain off enough to sleep. So there's a lot of factors going in there, but let's read some of this research and then we'll kind of pause. If you have questions, put them in the chat if anything, or if you're like, that's me, this totally makes sense for the first time, or anything like that, you relate to anything, put it in the chat, because the community and all of us being able to better understand each other is what this is all about. So, are you shoving some pineapple in my mouth? So, starting here, several early studies found children with ADHD to have a higher likelihood of sleeping problems than normal children. Again, this is 8 years ago, so not any. If you wrote this article today, it would probably say neurotypical, but that wasn't language that was used until very recently. So we're going to ignore the fact that it says normal and non-normal, and remember that these are clinical terms of normal and non-normal, not normal and abnormal. Seems the same, but it's different. Okay. Difficulties with time taken to fall asleep may be seen in as many as 56% of ADHD children, compared to 23% of normal children, and up to 39% of ADHD children may show problems with frequent night waking. And then we have some research. For example, a study by Baltern and Janison Fur in 1997 found that 53 to 64% of their ADHD group had sleep problems as reported by parents, and that whether or not the children were taking stimulant medication did not seem to influence these results. So one of the things they always talk about with stimulant medication is, it's going to keep you up at night. It's going to cause insomnia, right? It's going to cause sleep problems. Well, according to this research, that difficulty falling asleep happened whether or not those kids were on stimulant medication. So, while yes, sometimes stimulant medication can have the effect of difficulty sleeping, I think there's going to need to be a lot more research into that, because we know that stimulant medication, stimulants in general, don't affect ADHD brains the same way. So yeah, if you're going to give stimulant to a neurotypical brain, might keep them up all night. But how many of you have ever had a most lovely caffeine nap? I can tell you that when I'm coming down off of stimulant medication, I am super tired. It doesn't keep me up. So later studies have continued to support an association of ADHD with parent-reported sleeping disturbances. So a lot of this research is going to be talking about kids, but kids with ADHD become adults with ADHD, right? That's why I was trying to see if there was a more current article, because they're doing a lot more research with adults with ADHD than they were 10 years ago. But these things that happen with kids with ADHD are going to happen similarly with adults with ADHD. They used to think that you would outgrow it at puberty. That's now known to absolutely not be the case, as those of us who are being diagnosed later in life have figured out, right? The symptoms change, they look different, but they don't go away. And some of these sleep issues, Yeah, I always wondered why caffeine has little to no effect. Caffeine does not keep me awake. Um, if I do too much caffeine to try and stay awake, it will make me shaky, but yeah, it doesn't, it's not like, and my kids too. I live in a community where for a very long time, um, the local church culture uh, was there was like a thing about drinking caffeinated soda. It's very much a cultural thing and not a doctrinal thing in my faith and the predominant faith in the region. I'm in Utah. And but in certain smaller town areas, like where I live, there's still kind of a little bit of that lasting cultural thing about caffeine. And a lot of parents won't let their kids drink caffeine. Uh, I remember we went to after a baseball tournament, went to a restaurant and my kids wanted to order Mountain Dew. And one of the other parents who was sitting by them, they were sitting kind of down with their baseball buddies and they were like, "Oh, he wants to get Mountain Dew. Is that okay?" And I was like, the amount of caffeine in a Mountain Dew compared to the amount of methylphenidate in his body right now, that caffeine is not going to make one bit of difference. So our brains react differently to stimulants. So the idea that, I think the problem is sometimes if the dose is too high of the stimulant, if it's not an ideal dose, then that's when you're going to have problems with sleep. And of course, every medication is going to affect every person differently, which is why I recommend if you want to go that route to do it through a psychiatrist until you get things figured out for you, and then you can transfer over to a GP to maintain those prescriptions. But every different type of stimulant affects everyone a little bit differently, and some people, one stimulant might not be the one that they need. It keeps them up all night, whatever, and they switch to, an amphetamine base from a methylphenidate base or to something like Vyvanse, and those side effects go away. So if you're having those kind of side effects and you feel like the medication is making it worse, talk to your doctor. Always, 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 because the nice thing about stimulants is they are in and out of the system very quickly. So you can change medications quickly as opposed to like antidepressants and those things that have to build up in your system over time. Makes it a lot harder to switch around your medications, because it takes 6 weeks for it to be fully in your body, and then you have to let that one, you have to do it slowly. You can't just a stimulant, if it doesn't work after 3 to 5 days and things are still, sometimes it takes a minute for your body to adjust. But if after a week you're not liking it, you can stop and start a different one right away. Just the way they're metabolized is different. Sorry, random tangent. Let's get back to the article, to the research. The higher incidence of sleep difficulties may appear as early as infancy in ADHD children, with as many as 52%, half of ADHD children described as such in infancy compared to 21% of normal children. Resistance going to bed, frequent night awakenings, and fewer total sleep hours may be the most obvious sleep difficulties that ADHD children experience as reported by parents. People often ask me how early we could tell signs of our kids having ADHD. I can tell you with our third, it was as a newborn that we knew that there were differences because sensory wise and sleep hour, he's my one that didn't sleep through the night till he was about 6.5 years old consistently. So yes, you can tell that something is different. Whether you can identify that it is ADHD, autism spectrum, or something completely different in infants, toddlers, it's difficult to diagnose at that age. But oftentimes parents, when looking back, they can tell you, "Oh, I knew that this was different. I knew this was different." We could tell those differences from right away. Difficulties with sleep onset are right here. but also night waking are believed to characterize an unstable sleep pattern that has shown to be significantly associated with ADHD. I like these Russell Barkley articles because he reviews a lot of research in them as opposed to just one research article. But side note. More than 55% of ADHD children were also described by parents as tired on awakening, as compared to 27% of normal children. And children with ADHD manifest more frequent episodes of sleepiness during the day. How many of you have a difficult time waking up in the morning? Now, is that chronic sleep deprivation? Is that delayed sleep phase cycle? Probably both. We always have in society, they've always talked about early birds, night owls, right? A lot of your night owls are going to be your ADHDers. Studies using objective measures of sleep, such as polysomnograms taken during overnight sleep, have not documented any difficulties in the physiological nature of sleeping itself associated with disorder. So it's not going to necessarily show up on neurological testing or obstructive breathing tests. Sleep quality, objectively or electrically measured, does not seem to account for these parental reports of daytime tiredness and sleepiness, delayed sleep onset at nighttime, and disrupted sleep. So it's not a quality of sleep problem, right? They've controlled for all of these things about why is this kid sleepy in the morning? Is it because they didn't get enough sleep? Is it because they didn't get quality sleep? It really seems to be that they are having periods of sleepiness at times when it's not expected. So, 2 meta-analyses of objective sleep measures. Meta-analysis is something that you'll see in research a lot. If you're digging through any research, I don't know how many of you have done a lot of research or had to analyze research in school or whatnot. But a meta-analysis is a type of research where they statistically combine the results of many, 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 many studies on a same factor and analyze that data. It can be upwards of 30 to 50 different research studies. So a meta-analysis is a really great way to see kind of results from a lot of research in a small picture, as opposed to reading all of those different. But it's not just like a summary where someone subjectively reviews that research and notices patterns. It is there's meta-analysis statistical models. I don't know how to run them. My husband does. He did a lot of research that way in grad school. I just know that it is an objective statistical model for reviewing a lot of research at once. So these guys were looking at objective sleep measures, and they did find evidence that children with ADHD are more active during sleep, had greater daytime sleepiness, and had a greater apnea-hypopnea index, despite not finding any evidence of electrical abnormalities on overnight polysomnograms. In a subsequent meta-analysis of 16 studies that also include subjective measures of sleep difficulties, along with additional studies using objective measures, Cortese and colleagues found substantial evidence of ADHD-associated sleeping difficulties among the parent reports for greater bedtime resistance, delayed sleep onset, greater night awakenings, more difficulties with morning awakening, and sleep-disordered breathing. So it's not just us thinking that we're not sleeping, right? There's objective evidence that there's a lot of sleep troubles with kids with ADHD, is what these research, but with people with ADHD, right? I mean, kids naturally are much better sleepers than adults. So the fact that these problems showing up in kids is, I feel like, even more indicative of the fact that it is related to the ADHD and not something else. Objective measures also revealed greater sleep onset latency. So that's that, laying in bed for hours, not being able to fall asleep for a long time, more frequent shifts in sleep stage per hour of sleep. So that's going to be a quality of sleep issue. And a higher AHI, disordered breathing, associated with ADHD. This is why a lot of alternative med, but why there are a lot of theories in certain, alternative medicine circles that ADHD doesn't exist. It's really just a sleep problem. And sometimes I want to throat punch those people. And they're like, oh, just take out their adenoids and they will no longer have ADHD. It's like, okay, well, they might have an adenoid problem that needs to be fixed, but it's not going to solve their ADHD. Okay. I have strong opinions about people who say that ADHD doesn't exist for a variety of reasons and things that they attribute what we call ADHD to. And those are all people who don't have ADHD, or they would know. And those are a lot of the people who are going to give you the justs. Oh, if you just do this, then you won't have any problems. I get very annoyed. The children with ADHD also had lower sleep efficiency and less true sleep time as assessed by various lab measures. But in the percentage spent in various sleep stages and other measures such as night awakenings, the children with ADHD did not differ from controls. So, again, the quality of sleep is being controlled for and is not necessarily the issue. Yeah, you and me both. Put them in a room with me for 10 minutes. You might be talking about just, here, I'll show you what ADHD looks like. And I might be talking about, I'll tell you a thing or two. Let's just say that lack of impulse control issue when it comes to advocating for my kids on these sorts of topics. Yeah, don't mess with me. I know more than you do. And I have citations. See, stupid mouse went to sleep. You've got to get that other mouse charged up because it's making me crazy. Come on. There we go. No. Dang it. My thing froze up over here. Okay, hold on one sec. Sorry, my iPad sometimes likes to disconnect. Wait as a second. Screen. Okay. And I have to reconnect it. We're back. Okay. Where were we? All right here. These results partially replicate the reports of parents concerning some of these sleep parameters, but not others. More recently, a meta-analysis of 18 studies in which sleep disordered breathing was examined found a significant association of ADHD with SDB. The total portrait of findings here is one of considerable difficulties with bedtime resistance, sleep onset, sleep efficiency, SDB and AHI, so breathing related issues, and daytime tiredness, all being linked to ADHD. It seems likely, as noted by Cortese and colleagues, that 4 other factors may operate here to contribute to these elevated parent reports. Some of the parent-reported difficulties with bedtime resistance may be a part and parcel of the difficult behavior and oppositionality often observed in ADHD children, rather than reflecting true sleeping difficulties or disorders. So this is going to be an issue with the difference between research with kids and adults. And again, this article is 9 years old. But that is a factor for kids, right? Is behavioral disorder, behavioral issues, oppositional defiant, and just not wanting to go to bed at that time. That's a factor for us as well, although differently, right? It's I don't want to go to bed because then I have to start all over and I need some time. And we're not good at regulating ourselves to shut it down at a certain time and go to bed. We'll keep hyper-focusing on the thing. Yes, this Arctic ginger. I resist because my brain doesn't wind down. Actually, sometimes lay down and need to think I rev up. Yeah, because you're now in a quiet room and nothing else to distract that monkey ADHD part of your brain, and it just will bounce around in circles. I remember growing up, so I taught myself to read when I was, I don't know. I know it was before kindergarten. I think I was about 3. And I would read in bed. My parents would be like, okay, 1 story, 2 books or whatever, and then go to sleep. And then I would get back out of bed and go get myself a stack. I remember the system I would put a stack of books on this side and I'd read them and then I'd put them down on this side. So my parents would come in my room in the middle of the night every night. And this was before I was 5 years old. Because I have a vivid memory of the bedroom that I was in, and it was a house that we moved out of when I was 5. But they would have to pull all these books out from under me. And all growing up, I would read to fall asleep, to the point where when we were in a different house and we had to finish the basement, my bedroom was going to be built into the basement. So they wired my bedroom to have not can lights, but angled, basically a reading, not a side lamp, but a reading light that would reflect off the back of my wall, and had a switch next to my pillow. So I could read right up. And what I would do is read until the point that my eyes, I was dropping the book and my eyes were fading off before I could turn off the light and put the book down. And that's why I needed a switch there and not anything I had to get out of my bed to turn off. Because the minute if I didn't get all the way to that point, the minute the book went down, I was back awake. This continued through. Unfortunately, I got out of the habit and spending more time on screens before bed, which is about the worst possible thing you could do for a delayed sleep phase cycle, is to have a screen on in your bedroom. So yeah, I need to get out of that habit and back to reading. But it got to the point eventually where every time I would read, I would fall asleep, which is probably why I got out of the habit. It became a trigger for me. But yeah, I do still have to do things to distract my brain right up until that minute that I am asleep, and then can turn things off. I often fall asleep with something on YouTube, or audiobooks worked for a little while, but it can't be too engaging or else I won't fall asleep. That was a problem with books sometimes too, is if they became too engaging, they would keep me excited to be interesting enough for me to pay attention to, but not so interesting that I needed to stay up to finish it. So I know Runkle, the Bailey, talks about Terry Pratchett being one of his favorite authors. It's also one of my husband's favorite authors. I can't read his books because there's no chapters. So I don't have a place to pause. I don't know when to stop. I can't stop in the middle of a... Anyway, random tangent again. We got to get through this article. I don't have all night. You guys got to keep me on task. Oh, come on. There we go. I hate this stupid mouse. Okay. We're talking about behavioral stuff. Parents may also over-report their children's bedtime problems due to the high level of behavior problems such children may manifest throughout the day, the impressions of which may carry... Come on. Oh, my display is just keeps wanting to disconnect. I'm going to have to take it off of my second screen. Probably because I have too much going on my computer right now. So hold on one sec. Okay. Impressions which may carry over into the late day bedtime difficulties. So this is... My kid's driving me crazy all day and I'm out of patience at bedtime. If you have a parent of a child with ADHD, or of any child who is even remotely difficult for any reason, this rings true. However, some of the significant group differences on the objective measures, so not parent reports, but objective measures, noted above would suggest that this explanation cannot account entirely for the gradal parental reports of sleep related problems in children with ADHD, as children do have some sleeping abnormalities, nor can the use of stimulant medication used to treat ADHD and well known for producing insomnia account for these difficulties, as children on medication were excluded from the Cortese and colleagues meta analysis. So they wanted to make sure that it wasn't a medication causing these sleep issues. It appears that some of these parent reported behavioral difficulties surrounding children's bedtime are more a function of the disorders often comorbid with the ADHD, so ODD and anxiety disorders, than the ADHD itself. That's interesting. Or they may be non-specific to ADHD in that they characterize other behavior problems or learning disorders as well. One such candidate is ODD, which may be evident in a majority of children with ADHD. According to our pediatric psychiatrist, he says 50% of children with ADHD also have oppositional defiant disorder. Numbers may be higher than that. Another is anxiety depression, which also exists in a substantial subset of children and adults with ADHD. Now, we talked about this a little bit last time about whether or not anxiety it's a cause and effect sort of thing, right? Is the living with ADHD causing the anxiety, or are those two things just highly comorbid by nature? And the answer is probably both. And it's why a lot of women are misdiagnosed with anxiety, because their ADHD symptoms look like anxiety. This is funny, Dr. Phil. Yeah, see, the thing with Dr. Phil is I know too much about psychology and therapy, and I find him aggravating sometimes, so that might not put me to sleep. Trial streams actually have been really great for that. Rewatching the Johnny Depp trial, but from different streams, different commentators, so it gives me a little bit something new to keep me interested. But if my attention wanders or I fall asleep, it's no big deal. That is a thing I have done many times. Hold on one second. I have a kiddo asking a question. My husband is getting kiddos ready for stuff, and they're looking for something. Okay. Trying to find all the pieces for the required uniforms, concert attire, all those things. Especially with this particular child, you can never find anything. Hold on, they're coming down. Oh boy. Sorry about that. Okay. Mays and colleagues studied the extent to which comorbidity accounted for sleep problems and found that only children with the combined type of ADHD had elevated parental reports of sleeping difficulties relative to controls, and those with an attentive type of ADHD. Interestingly, the inattentive type of ADHD was associated with sleeping more, not less, than controls. So that hyperactivity is a key factor. Now, this is interesting in adulthood because hyperactivity changes. And a lot of women, their hyperactivity is manifest in hyperactive brains. So while you may present as more of an inattentive or combined type, your hyperactivity might just look different. Let's see. The presence of comorbid anxiety and depression increased the frequency of sleep problems while ODD did not. So that behavioral thing, it doesn't account for all the sleep problems. They did not find ODD to be associated with parent-reported sleeping difficulties beyond that attributable to ADHD alone. So ruling out ODD as a factor. I'm going to kind of go ahead here because a lot of this is kind of the same, just like ruling other things out. If you are interested in reading more of this article, leave me a comment and I will figure out a way to share a link if you want to look more into some of that. So this is interesting. A possible mechanism for some of the sleep-related difficulties evident in ADHD are recent findings that children with ADHD have a greater occurrence of certain polymorphisms of clock genes than those in the typical population. Children with ADHD were noted to have an elevated incidence of the T311C polymorphism of this clock gene, which was even more prevalent in those ADHD children having parent-reported sleep disturbances than those without them. The normal circadian rhythm is known to be affected by genes called clock genes that also affect the sleep-wake cycle. It's in our genetic code. And the release of such hormones as melatonin and cortisol. Thus, there seems to be some promise in exploring this relationship of genetic predispositions to sleep problems in ADHD in future research. That's definitely something I want to look up because this research is, almost 10 years old, I'm sure. I'm going to add that to our clock genes. Current research. See what I can find for a future video, because that is not something I had heard of before. See, we're all learning together. So greater movement during sleep, so restless leg syndrome, epilepsy, things like that. Movement disorders, tic disorders are very common in people with ADHD. Okay. These people have hypothesized that the sleeping difficulties associated with ADHD may be subdivided into 5 phenotypes. A sleep phenotype characterized mainly by a hypoarousal state resembling narcolepsy, which may be considered a primary form of ADHD. A phenotype associated with delayed sleep onset latency and with a higher risk of bipolar disorder. A phenotype associated with sleep disordered breathing. Another phenotype related to restless leg syndrome and or periodic limb movements. And lastly, a phenotype related to epilepsy or EEG, interictal discharges. So that's interesting. Quantity of sleep a child receives, as well as elevated symptoms of disordered breathing during sleep, are associated with teacher ratings of externalizing behavior problems, particularly inattention. So we got quantity. Okay, so now we got some interventions down here, which is... Okay, one intervention for delayed sleep onset in ADHD that has been studied was the use of sublingual melatonin prior to bedtime. So the problem is a lot of the times that we give the melatonin isn't the right time. And there's actually kind of a staged way to more effectively give melatonin. So improvement of sleep onset was reported in children with ADHD receiving the melatonin compared to placebo. So melatonin does help. And if you're thinking about it, a lot of people are worried, oh, my kid will never be able to sleep without melatonin if they start using melatonin. Number one, I can say that I had a kid who required melatonin to sleep every night for like 7 years, and he now only uses it occasionally. So that's one thing. But also, if your brain, a kid or an adult, is not producing its own melatonin ever, then a little supplement of that hormone seems like a better idea than prescription sleep pills, right? With fewer side effects. So even if my kid does end up being dependent on a 5 milligram melatonin every night for the rest of his life, if it means better sleep, which improves ADHD symptoms, and he can't get that sleep without it, and the alternative is eventually being on a prescription sleep medication, I'll take the melatonin supplement any day of the week. Step off soapbox. Talks here about there's not enough research on adolescents, although there's some more recent research that I saw. And then only a few studies evaluated sleeping difficulties is associated with ADHD in adults. Now, this was 10 years ago, and we have a lot more research on that now. But there is this. They reported that adults with ADHD went to bed later, had a wider range of bedtimes, and were more likely to take over an hour to fall asleep, and reported more difficulties going to sleep, sleeping restfully, and waking in the morning. They also reported more daytime sleepiness than did control adults. These differences remained despite controlling for use of ADHD medications, age, and comorbidity with other psychiatric disorders. Similar results were reported in population-based survey of a large sample of adults in Romania, in which severity evaded. Some of this is getting old. So that's the research. And this is 10-year-old research, but newer research is simply really just has confirmed that and added additional information to basically say, yeah, people with ADHD really struggle with sleep. So let's talk a little bit. So we got you some research so you can say, yes, this is a thing. I'm not crazy. Now I'm going to take a small comfort break, and then I'm going to put on my little swoop, and then we're going to talk about what do we do about the fact that sleep is an issue and we have to live in a society that operates on a 9-to-5 schedule. So let me, stupid nuts. Hate this mouse. Really want my other one to work, but I need to plug it in, and my plugs are all not working right now. So let's see. What am I going to put on? What is this? Nope, that's not what I want. Maybe I'll just try and get Charlotte to give you a view and put on a little music for a second. I will be right back. Okay, thank you for holding. Charlotte probably didn't stay there long because she probably jumped off to go follow me. I feel for your mother because I have one child who was like this. And it's exhausting as a parent when you cannot get the sleep that you need, especially when you are also an ADHD anxious person and that sleep is necessary. And then I also have, I've mentioned before, I have an autoimmune condition that means additional fatigue. It's really hard. Poor sleep, honestly, should be included in diagnostic criteria for some of these things. I mentioned earlier, I got this delivered today. I just have to charge it up so that I can connect it. So I'm using this cheap one that I got off Amazon that just likes to go to sleep constantly and is annoying at trying to wake it up. We forgive you, but we're exhausted. Hopefully, Charlotte's little squeaky toy back there. And one of the things we talked about was service dogs. This is Charlotte. She is a service dog in training. She is 4 months old, and she is being trained for my 7-year-old. Sorry, just was getting texts on my other thing that distracted me. It looks like they found the shirt needed for the concert tomorrow. What was he saying? Oh, Charlotte. We'll talk more about it, but I would like to share. Oh, I'm going to swoop. Gotta swoop. Okay. I'm going to add a clip. Here it is. What you doing, miss? Good girl. Yes. She's a very good pupper. Okay. Ready? I spent way too long working on that. Okay. Mine is about 2. My ideal sleep window, if I could sleep when my body wants to sleep, would be from 1:30 a.m. till about 10. So I require more than 8 hours of sleep. But 1:30 is about where I'm going. But I will share before we move on to some solutions and things to do to manage sleep in a world that's not made for our brains. I'm going to show you our little miracle of the week. So let me pull up a picture. Let me find the right one that kind of, there we go. This is what we want. Where did it go? I lost it. Hold on, because this is a good story. So my son is 7. He is likely on the autism spectrum. Uh-oh. Lost my light. Automatic timer. Though we have not done the testing for it. That is something that's come up more recently. He has been diagnosed with ADHD since he was about 3. But as he gets older and the gap in development gets a little wider, we are fairly certain that he's on the spectrum. We had dentist appointments this for all 3 boys, just our regular checkup cleanings. And nope. Okay. Making weird noises. Where? Well, let me do it that way. Okay, so we're going to do it this way. I'm still figuring out how to put images in here. And it's not easy, so we're going to just do this via sharing screen. So we had dentist appointments this week. My son, we go to his pediatric dentist. They're awesome. They work with us so well. He's been going since he was about 18 months old to the same dentist. We have never had a trip to the dentist for cleaning or otherwise that didn't involve some sort of meltdown. We've had panic attacks. We've had jumping off the chair and running across the office and hiding. We have had just absolute refusal to open his mouth. I've had to sit with him on my lap and restrain his arms. We try not to do that because we're trying to make it, a positive place. We've had to sedate him for some work. So this is what happened at the dentist this time. Can you see that? Can you see it? It's not showing up. There we go. Here's Charlotte. Charlotte is barely into her obedience training. She's only 4 months old. She will not be fully trained for service work till probably next spring, early summer. So for training of service dogs, you've got puppy training, obedience training, or they have to pass what's called the Canine Good Citizen test. And then they go to public access training. There's another couple of tests to pass there, and then task-specific training. So she was not trained to identify that she needed to go up there, but her presence and her naturally intuitive nature, she has been doing her job without being trained to. So I'm very excited to see what she can do when she's trained. And we'll definitely talk more about that and the whole process in a future video. But this was yesterday at the dentist. I put Charlotte on place on the chair. She was completely unfazed by all the sights, sounds, smells, even the chair moving up and down. And she stayed there just like this for the duration of his cleaning. And we made it through our first dentist appointment with no crying, no panicking, no anxiety, no tears. When he started to get a little nervous, he just reached his little hand down on her back. And her presence there, he hopped off the chair when he was done and he said, "Mom, I wasn't even scared. And it was because of Charlotte." And I get emotional talking about it because that's the first time we've had a dentist appointment that was in and out, no meltdowns, no crying, no anxiety, just got his teeth cleaned. Something that so many parents and families take for granted is the ability to do little things like this. Go to the doctor and get your ears checked. So I'm super excited about Charlotte and what she's going to be able to do in the future. She is amazing. She's already a month ahead on her training at 4 months old. That's pretty impressive. And she picks everything up quickly. She loves to work. She loves to help. She's driven and focused, and she is amazing. And I will definitely share more about the process of finding her. But yeah, that was our little win of the week. So after that little good news moment, let's do this again because oh, it's so funny. I love it. I think this is common for a lot of people our age. Pediatric dentists didn't exist. I had a great dentist who actually was a family friend and neighbor, and so I did not have that problem. I am very grateful for the experiences that my kids have had at the dentist because that's a big deal. Teeth can be a real issue. And if you are nervous about getting them taken care of, they can lead to a lot of health issues. So I'm sorry that you had that experience as a kid. And I hope that you can find a way to ease that anxiety one way or another. Find a dentist you trust and like, and who's willing to work through it with you, because, it's important. Health things, when you have, you guys have probably all noticed when you're sick, when anything's going on otherly with your body, ADHD symptoms are worse. And oral health is a big deal. You get infections, cavities, things like that, anything that can distract you. I mean, I had to go take a break just now because I was not going to be able to focus with what my bladder was telling me because of the flood of liquids I have to do today for the stupid test. Hold, please. The only negative on Charlotte, and the one thing that keeps her from being the absolute perfect dog, is she's still excited peas. And one of my sons just came in the room and his energy was a little too exciting, and so she peed. So hold please while I clean that up. Okay, so apparently that's something that's fairly common in standard poodles and especially females, and the breeder assures me that around 6 months it will improve. She's getting better, but it's very annoying. Anyhow, back. Okay, so I want to talk about some solutions for those of us who have disordered sleep, which is going to be almost all of us, as more current research is showing that up to 75% of us suffer from delayed sleep phase syndrome. Delayed sleep phase syndrome, as we talked about, is 2 hours or more of kind of adjusted circadian rhythm based on melatonin production. And it's rough when you live in a 9 to 5 world and you have to operate on that schedule. Kids have to be up for school by 7. I can't sleep till 10. So we have to sometimes adapt to the world rather than the world adapting to us. So what can we do? Sleep hygiene is always the first thing the doctors will talk to you about. So what is sleep hygiene? Regular routines. As we all know, with ADHD, routines and structure and systems are the things that we hate, but that we need in order to function. Habit stacking, having good systems and structures and routines in order, we function better because our brain isn't having to constantly search for those things. It's just a rote habit. So some important things for sleep hygiene is to only use your bed for sleeping. I'm not good at this. I like to work in my bed. It's why I've been trying to make my office better and easier to work in, because you want your bed to only be associated with sleep. It helps trigger your brain that when you're in this place, it's for sleep. Yes, Charlotte is a standard poodle. And she's awesome and we love her. Let's see. It's rougher when you live in a world where 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. is late. Yeah. It's so hard. It's so hard. This world was not built for us. I always say, hey, I was meant to protect the herd from lions, tigers, and bears on night watch. I am the late shift. And then you all can take the late morning when you early birds want to get up. It was actually a really big point of contention for a large, especially before we had kids in my marriage, because my husband is an early bird. He can lay down at 9 o'clock at night, head hits the pillow, and he's out cold in like 30 seconds. So frustrating when you are laying there trying to sleep for 2 hours and he's snoring in your ear. And he snores. It's like rubbing it in. Ha ha, I'm asleep and you're not. But he, like, on the weekends would want me to like get up and go do stuff. Let's get the chores done so we can go. And I was like, heck no, it's the weekend. I'm sleeping in. Why should I get up? There was a little bit of a mismatch there for a while, and it was a little bit of a point of contention. Once we had kids and everything kind of shifted, and especially in the last few years, now that I have my diagnosis and we both know so much more about ADHD and sleep issues with ADHD, it's gotten better. That part is not as much of a bone of contention for us. So, but it was for first 10 years of marriage. We will celebrate 20 years of marriage this August. So that's exciting and makes me feel old. And I still don't feel like enough of a grown-up. I don't know. Imposter syndrome all the time. So, sleep hygiene things. 1, only use your bed for sleeping. 2, one that's really, really hard for us, and that I am the worst example ever for, we talked about earlier, is screens before bed. Having a yellow shift helps, but blue light does delay the protection of melatonin. And that is because our brains don't get that trigger of when the sun goes down to start producing that melatonin. And our brains already do that 2+ hours later than a neurotypical brain. So anything that we're doing that's also going to disrupt that is just going to make things worse for us when we're trying to fall asleep. So limiting screen time, ideally 2 hours before bed, but 1 hour before bed is best. But routines around bedtime. If you're a person who a bath is relaxing, we mentioned reading, there are other craft things. If there's certain foods that are super relaxing, comforting to you, smells can be really powerful. Candles, essential oils, things like that. Not only for some of their more natural effects at helping produce melatonin. Cedar wood is one that's known to help with melatonin production. Rubbing that on back of your neck, on your feet can sometimes help. Again, not medical advice, just anecdotal things that people say help. I haven't necessarily noticed that cedar wood has helped me, but I have noticed sometimes helping my kids. Whether that's placebo effect or not, whatever. Melatonin, as we talked about, there's staged ways to take melatonin. Ideally, you should take it an hour to 90 to 120 minutes before bed. And you can also take a small amount then, and then 30 minutes before bed, another dose. So you get kind of that ramp up in production. Don't quote me. And again, not medical advice on those times, but that's something you can Google, and maybe that's something we'll talk about in a future stream, or I can put in a shorter video, is melatonin use. When to take according to research. I like to quote doctors. So that on there. Other things that can help is exercise. Now, a lot of people exercise will ramp them up. And that can be the case if you're first starting exercise, but 30 minutes of exercise in the morning and evening, and the kind of exercise that really gets your heart rate up. Strength training is great for a lot of things, and it's not necessarily cardio for the sake of heart health, but getting your heart rate up for 30 minutes can have similar effects to stimulant medication for the next like 2 to 3 hours. It just doesn't last as long. And, we can't all exercise for 30 minutes to work for 2 hours all day long, because that doesn't work in real life. But putting some exercise into your evenings can help your body your brain to kind of get into a place where it's not pingy. I mentioned a dump book and productivity. We were talking about, I don't remember, but it's a way that I increase my productivity is with keeping a notebook nearby where I can write down all of those intrusive random thoughts so that my brain doesn't feel the need to hold on to them. Something similar can be helpful for sleep as well. Have something next to your bed that you can write things on, or use voice memos for those intrusive pinging ideas that won't shut up so you can go to sleep. Another thing that can be really helpful is breath work. There are a number of different breathing exercises you can do that are calming to the central nervous system. But the most important thing is that you have to practice those. They're not something that you can do just in crisis moments, or they won't be effective. You have to do them in calm times as well. Box breathing is one. Box breathing is in for 4, hold for 4, out the mouth through 4, hold for 4. There's scientific research that it can calm your central nervous system. So that can help if you put it in, as well as meditation. Meditation is really hard for people with ADHD. And so there are different ways. A lot of meditation that involves movement is more helpful. But sometimes guided meditation, so someone talking into your ear, as opposed to just kind of a transcendental meditation where you're trying to just sit and stop thoughts, because that doesn't work, right? So guided meditations can be really helpful. I have a friend of mine who does some really great work in breath work and meditation. If you're looking for a class or a way to, or some downloads or a way to kind of learn some of those techniques, her name is Abby Daw, ABBEYDAW, and her program is called Magic, MAGIK. Let's see if I can pop a link to that. She has a few different ways. Here we go. abbydaw.com, ABBEYDAW.com is her website. If you want to take a look at that. It's a course I've been involved with for a couple of years now. Posting the link in the chat for you. She's a fantastic teacher. She came from kind of yoga background. She teaches a wide variety of different types of breath work and different types of meditation, so you can find what works for you. She has a course or a membership that has a weekly group that you can then watch the calls later. Really fascinating stuff. Maybe I'll see if I can have her come on the channel at some point and teach us. I'm sure she would be willing to do that. But she's always coming up with new ways to help teach these skills, and she's really great. Another breath technique that I really like It's called alternate nostril breathing, and I'll kind of talk you through that one right now. But this is another one that is known to calm your central nervous system, and it can really help to kind of focus that brain down and help with sleepy things or just dealing with anxiety. So you're going to take your thumb and your ring finger like this. Okay, so you can go back and forth on each nostril. And you're going to go in and hold for 4 and out. And hold. And in one side. And hold. Out. And hold. Yes, Headspace is a great app for guided meditations. Wim Hof is another one. Wim Hof was kind of developed for this kind of like cold plunges sort of breathing. It's a little bit more of an activating breath. It is one that Abby talks about in her course. She has kind of ones that are more for activation, energizing, ones that are more for focus, ones that are more for calming. That's why I really like her course. I'm going to see if I can get her to come on the stream at some point. Or maybe even just do a recorded video with her talking about some different types of breath. And yeah, alternate nostril breathing is one I really like. I like to do in for 8, hold for 4, out for 8, hold for 4, but you can do 4, 4, 4, 4. I need to just get up for the day. When I woke up at 5:30, I get so tired from about 6:30 to 8 p.m. 6:30 to 8 p.m. Yeah. So for me, the times that I want to sleep, like take a nap, are like 2 to 3:30 in the afternoon. And then I'm okay for a little bit. And then it's usually like right around when it's time to like cook dinner. I'm exhausted. But it's too early to go to bed. By the time it's time to go to bed, can't fall asleep. So figuring out what your body wants to do and adding in some naps when possible, catching up on sleep on the weekend, simply because being chronically sleep deprived makes ADHD symptoms worse. Sometimes we can't always manage with sleep hygiene and forcing ourselves to go to bed on the times that the rest of the world wants us to. And so we need to catch up. Come on, mouse. There you go. Nisa, for those who have asthma or breathing issues, cool down breathing is good. Good to know. Thank you for sharing. So, yeah, any other questions? I want to talk a lot more about this in the future. I think it's good to just normalize the fact that we do have these sleep issues, that it's not intentional, it's not our choices, right? And sometimes some of it is a little bit behavioral. You know, for me, I get a lot more done in these later hours. From 8 to 12:30, I can get a heck of a lot more work done. Part of that is that my house is quiet and I don't get interrupted as often, so I can get into that kind of flow state, into that hyper focus, or at least just not be pulled out of what I'm doing and have to restart, because task initiation is the bane of my existence. And so once I get started, and hyperfocus does become a thing, right? You get started on something to relax or a hobby or something in those quiet times, and then you have a really hard time stopping. So setting timers for yourself and alarms and sticking to them, holding yourself accountable to, okay, I have to shut this down at 10:30 and start getting ready for bed, and start that routine. Have a set routine, keep it simple. You know, adding a 14-step routine for bedtime isn't helpful. It's one thing we talk with parents about, is to simplify those routines. So we're not doing a bath and a book and this and that. It's keep it short, keep it simple, but keep it consistent. Consistency is key. It's the bane of our existence. We hate it. Our brains fight against it, but it is the thing that helps the most. Having a accountability partner to hold you to routines, to structure, can be helpful. Not always a spouse, because that can lead to conflict. But, you know, setting a time to be like, if I want to be in in bed and have that kind of connection time just to chat. With my husband, I have to get in bed when he wants to get in bed. And he's pushed his a little later and falls asleep with the lamp on every night, something he learned early in our marriage because I was reading all night. And yeah, it's kind of a running joke in our family that all of the husbands, I have aunts who are younger. So when I talk about my family, I'm really talking about my aunts and their family. Charlotte, off. Good girl. Yes, good girl. But we are all late night readers. So all of our husbands have had to figure out how to fall asleep with lamps on. So any other questions or anything else you guys want to chat about before I guess I can't stay on too long tonight because I have a ton of work to do. And it's about dinner time for Miss Charlotte back here. So she's going to hold me to my schedule tonight. And then comment in the comments or now in the chat what you want to talk about next. I'm going to do a recording hopefully in the next little bit here talking about my ADHD story, my path to diagnosis and how that affected things. So that will be a video that comes up. I'm going to clip down some parts from some previous streams into shorts or shorter videos for those who weren't there. But yeah, if there's a topic that you want to do some literature research review or just something you want to chat about, put that in the comments. And also tell me what days of the week and times of day work for you in your various time zones. I can't necessarily work around that, but I'm trying to find a couple of regular times to go live during the week that work for different people's schedules. So maybe one that's going to be more in the evenings and one that's earlier in the day. Trying not to kind of interfere with the regular streams that I like to attend, but also, make sure that I am available at times that work for the community. So if there's day of the week, time of day, that, would be better for you, put it in the comments and I will take note to try and find kind of a regular time. It may be more variable in the summer just because kids' schedules are going to be different than during the school year when I have a little more control over my schedule. Ooh, this is great. Exciting news. They have the info for somebody to do a virtual eval. Now I need to call them and schedule it. Congratulations. That's awesome. Finding resources and getting those diagnoses, getting those profiles of strengths and weaknesses, all those results. It's so validating, but it's also really helpful in figuring out how to accommodate and how to make changes in your lifestyle. This is great. Have a good one, everyone. I hope we all have a better sleep tonight. Put your screens away, set yourself an alarm, shut things down, and keep your bed just for sleeping. All of these things that I'm suggesting, none of them do I do right now. So just so you know, I'm not holding anyone to any standard and will be the first to admit that these are things I struggle with too. Big time. Yeah, I think I'm going to reach out to Abby. She's actually a friend of mine from college. And we reconnected years later and she started doing this stuff and she's really incredible. She's a great teacher. And so I think it'd be really great to have her come on and share with us a little bit, introduce you to her. I definitely recommend you check her out on Facebook, Instagram, all of those channels. I don't believe she's on YouTube yet, but 8 p.m. Eastern or later. So that's 6 o'clock here. Okay. So go put sheets on the bed in the guest room that I've slept on the last several days. guys. Hey, if you've probably noticed that, okay, so there's kind of two things. I don't sleep in hotels. I don't sleep well. I sleep worse. I don't sleep well anywhere. I sleep worse in foreign environments, foreign sounds, foreign smells. Temperature is an issue for me for sleep. There's a lot of sensory things that come along with ADHD that make sleep difficult as well, because all of those sensory things can be distracting, as I'm sure you all know. More we can talk about in the future when I have a little bit more time. We can all share all of the things that make our sleep harder. But yeah, figure out where is going to be your sleeping place and make that place just for sleeping. Again, I'm really bad at that, especially as a chronic pain person. I tend to just go to my bed to get off my feet and relax and all of that. However, I do start my new diet and care plan for inflammation and autoimmune flare-up chronic pain stuff on Saturday. It's going to be brutal. It's going to be difficult, but I'm hopeful. The guest room has the newer mattress than my room, but my mattress also has all the clothes I ordered online. This is another problem we all have, right? We just pile things on our bed, and then when it's time to go to bed, there's no place for us to lay down. Again, try and keep your bed just for sleeping. And get a chair in your room to pile all that stuff. My husband sometimes, so when he's sick or when I'm sick, when either of us is sick, or sometimes if the temperature is an issue, like when our AC was out, he will sleep in the basement. And it's always funny because when he's like ready to come back upstairs, there's always like his side of the bed is just like full of stuff. He's like, can I come back to bed, or do you need this space for your stuff? So yeah. All right. I need to sign off because I have a great deal of work to do tonight. And I can tell you that I'm not going to follow my own advice, and I'm going to end up staying up late working tonight simply because it just has to be done tonight. So it's been that kind of week and I'm incredibly behind. So I'm going to go hyper focus in on that. I'm going to find something to listen to distract myself from boring paperwork and figuring out systems and emails and all that other boring stuff. And I'm going to go feed Charlotte because she's getting a little scampy over here. So have a great night. Remember, if you haven't yet, to like, comment, share with your friends, and let's grow this community because we need each other, man. And it's so nice to be in a place where everybody gets it. So yeah, I'm going to run the outro, and happy Thursday. I'll probably see a lot of you. I put out some of that work for the end of the night so you can get it off the screens. I know so much of my work is on the computer. It's a problem. But I do have a new book. So I am going to try to do some of the like reading things that I need to do, research and whatnot at the end to help me fall asleep. Thank you all for being here. I enjoy you greatly, and I love watching you guys support each other in the chat. This is a great community. I'm really excited for it to grow. So, and I'm going to stop looking at the chat because y'all are distracting, and I'm going to run the outro. But let's just do this. I just had to. It's so fun. I'm going to need to make more. But there we go. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. This video is not a substitute for counseling, psychotherapy, medical, or mental health care. The information and advice shared here should not be used in place of any form of diagnosis, treatment, or therapy. Information provided here does not involve diagnosis or treatment of medical or mental or psychological disorders. If you feel the need for professional support, please seek a local professional in your area. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only.